In this part, we want to draw some stones with just simple lines, and I will work some texture with you guys, and for us to see how we can use these stones in architecture. Let's start with some simple lines. Look closely. In order to draw a stone, I will draw the surface first, the upper layer, using vertical lines. But we don't want to be very loyal to vertical lines. So I'm using just simple lines like this. I can draw the surface of my stone angled, because we don't necessarily need to make it flat. So it can have a little angle and slope, and it could not be vertical, and it could be moving with an angle, and I'm moving it like this. Try to do this very patiently, don't rush it. And as you can see, the lines that I'm using at the top are broken lines, and I'm not using smooth lines. Later on we will check stone break, and we will see how we can draw them, and we will see how we can draw stones that are round. But here I'm using broken lines, and as you can see, I'm doing my surfaces in any angle. So this could be an area next to a river or mountainous area. And as you can see, we create these stones with just some simple lines. Let's connect them to each other. And we can use some round stones between these. We can use shapes like this, as I always joke about it. Just act like a potato, and it's like you don't follow a certain pattern. Sometimes it's flat, sometimes it's round. Sometimes I draw it vertical, sometimes I draw this another way. But it got dimension to it, so I'll add a line next to it so it will indicate the dimension a little bit. So like this, I'm adding some space between the stones. As you can see, the left side is practically got some dimension to it, and we can add it hatching later on also. In our next exercises, when I'm teaching bushes and we are learning vertical lines, we can use these lines very easily and draw some bushes between them and get a different outcome from this. And as you can see, it's getting formed. I'm using broken lines again. Use this between them, and I will try to increase my designing speeds so I can cover more areas. So in some parts I can use these simple lines that I use for grass like this. And as you can see, our texture is completely getting formed, and it's getting a personality to it and transmitting an atmosphere. So you can do this with just a couple of simple lines. First, that you're starting to do sketching, it will take some time to get used to your rapid, your pencil and your pen, but do this practice for your daily practice. Every day, like 30-minute or 40-minute, but do it purposefully. Try to follow these videos and to have a continuous practice with these videos. After a while, automatically, a miracle will happen. The lining miracle will happen at a time when you have exercise. So don't rush it to have a high quality lining at the beginning of your work, especially if you just started. But if you had experienced lining before, try to do this in a way that I'm doing also, and you will get a different result from it. So I created my platform here. What I'm going to do now is I will shade from one side, and I will consider one side as light. If I consider light on the right side, my left side will be completely shadow. I can use my hatchings in two ways. I can use fast hatching, or I can use continuous hatching, or I can use both of them. So in order to see depth and where I'm standing at the moment, and to recognize the shadows, I'll just add some hatching. We added highlight on the left side of our work. And as you can see, when you added these, it completely gets a dimension to it. And you can do them in all different angles. You don't necessarily need to do them all the same. So when you do it 45 degree or when you do it vertically, it can all be in different angles. In our buildings, we will use the same hatching. So these hatchings will help you a lot in your practices and in your designs. So as much as we go forward, we will use these hatchings a lot more, and we will see what is the use of them. Look, I'm not being too concerned about it a lot. And for the shadows, we can do diagonal shadow or diagonal hatchings. And it will give depth to your stones, and it shows that it's placing on the ground. And as you can see, when we added shadow texture next to it, it completely gets dimension and gets depth. So the part that we couldn't understand from it, we can understand and recognize more now. Try to rotate your page when you're working, but I'm not doing that because I'm under the camera and I have some angle limits and I can't do it. But you really should do it, and if I wasn't filming this, I would rotate my page for sure, because I want you to be at ease and don't limit yourself. Some people glue the page down so it won't move. And just remember, when you are doing architectural sketching, the guy that reviews it doesn't care if you glue this down or not. He will just check that how you did it, and he will just check the quality of it, and if you draw something good or not. Sometimes what you're drawing is more important than how you're drawing it and what technique you use to draw it. but the technique for sure helps the process, of course. And as I said before, like when you're driving and you want to do sketching, you shouldn't be thinking about your tools. You shouldn't be thinking about your technique also, because it will slow you down. And because of that, we need to increase the quality of our lining so much that when I'm just doing my work, all that I'm thinking is how to design. And as you can see, when I added shadows on the left side, with just some highlighting, it completely gets dimension. And with some grass, it got dimension. Later on in our sketching, we will use these formats. And in my typography, I will do this very easily. And I will start to show my mountainous landscape with this. You can use this technique very easily in that and have a different result from it. Now let's do this as a pattern and texture. Unlimited surfaces and areas to see what the result will be. So for our next practice, for learning stones and textures, let's move to some more limited surfaces. So if I got a surface like this, I will try to do some simple practice and then we move to harder practices. Let's do some simple textures first. Try to show your textures on the surfaces, that what type of material that I'm using. What I'm going to do now is to design a cube here. In designing my cube, I will do wiggly lines and I will take some lines out. So just don't limit yourself. And as you can see, I'm increasing my speed. I'm using wiggly lines, moving from left to right, changing the size of them. So be sure to do that. So if they got intersection, don't draw it and try to do stones separate from each other. This is one of the common mistakes that students do. I'll draw the next one here like this. This is a mistake. You should put them completely next to each other. Imagine that you are just designing a puzzle right here. So you're not allowed to do that. Like this. So as you can see, I'm finishing my pattern here. Like this. That I'm filling all of this here. And remember, if you got some seam between your stones, you can put more emphasis on it. So I'll try to put more emphasis on them with little shadowing. And to make sure that we are showing the distance between our stones. And this will help us to see the stones even better. Put the stones together from left to right and give them some distance, a little area between them. And like this, make them darker. So this is a pattern that I just used here. I'm using this pattern a lot in my sketchings. It's very easy and you can learn it super fast. And it will give you a good end result. Second pattern that I'm going to use here is going to be a little different. It's like the rubber walling system that we did. So in my second pattern, what I'm going to do is to do rubble walling. So for this part, like this. I can continue from the bottom also. My model will be a little different here. It's not going to be as clean as the top one. With a free form or free model, I'll draw it and I'll mark the left side. Do them in different sizes, big and small, because they need to be different rest your hand on the table and try to do this with more ease, vertically and horizontal. If you don't pick up your hand and do these lines with one go, you need to repeat the same line a couple of times and your work will become more interesting. So this is our second texture that I'm using next to my work. Try to do this patiently and learn this patiently and learn how to use them in different surfaces. I will do this on different surfaces, for example, so you guys will see what will happen if you do this on different surfaces. So we got two very different texture of stones here. And our next example will have a different sort to it. This is one pattern, this is another one, and mixing them together can create a facade or a view here. It can show us different detail form. So I can use this in my facade and in my designs also. I can add some shadows and some hatching to help to give it depth a little more. Even the one at the top, I can add some hatching. So I want to create different texture, different stone. Edit this like this. Look closely. When you are drawing this part, what I do, I will draw the surface of the stone, like this. Exactly like the one at the top. We are just putting some stones together here, doing a rip-rop. It could be for the wall that they are putting next to another wall. You can use melon stone here in this part. Anyhow, you can see stones and you can create texture for it. And don't limit yourself to the stuff that I'm teaching you guys. And as much as we go further and you get used to your pen, you can create your own texture. And as you can see, I'm doing this with all kind of angles, in all kind of angles. Next part, I'll try to break my surfaces, and it doesn't need to be flat. I have stones like this in this format, and I can keep it like this. Change between them. I will create an angle here from my mind, and we will continue the lines like this. So it will create a dimension, and it gives it some depth. And as you can see, it's forming. And after that, we will highlight the space between them. Like this, I can create some depth and do little shadows in them. We need to hash this a couple of times to give it better depth. Like this, we can create this. As you can see, when I'm editing detail, stones are showing themselves even more. and it looks much better. So now let's edit our last hatching. And when I finish dividing them like this, there we'll edit our last dimension and we'll get the stone that we want. In next part, I will give you a practice. Look, we have our depth now. And let's edit some broken parts on the surface. I just need to do this on the surface. These broken areas will make our work to be more natural. Just like this, we can get a very good outcome. It's even better if I give it a little hatching on the left side. Very smooth hatching on the left side. This hatching will make a really good dimension to our stones. And as you can see, when I'm doing shadows, a shadow will help us to show the fracture on stones much better. Remember, it's the same thing in architectural designing. If I got a fracture in my design, these hatching can give us a way cooler outcome. Look now, it's got a really good dimension to it. Now I will try to design a building facade for you guys with the patterns that we learned and 2 other patterns that we are going to learn, so you can use it as a practice. So let's reach to a conclusion with the stone's textures that we learned so far. What I'm going to do in this part, we'll work on wood texture a bit here, and then we'll start designing the thing that we want to use in our project. For example, in this part, I've got a very simple chimney here. It comes up to this point. Let's design it with just simple lines. Next to it, I've got a platform here, and it uses another texture, which means I will use 2 textures here. And a part of it I will cover with some woods and an inclined surface next to our work. And we'll make it work bit by bit when we go further. Like this, I will get my surfaces. Don't prioritize here. We don't have 1, 2, 3. You can do whatever you want. Which means when I'm designing this, instead of drawing my depth first, I can do fractures. So in this part, let's do the fractures here. Oh, well, let's do another part here on the bottom. Another one here, like this. I will continue my topography to the bottom. Let's draw the fractures for the areas that are on the wall. And as you can see, the lines are showing themselves here. Let's design a dimension, give it a little depth. For practicing, pause this video or review it a lot of times so you will master this work. What I'm doing here, is a result of 20 years of practice. But in order you to master this work, you need to practice it like 5 or 6 months. And you cannot do it super fast. But what we can do here is we can master them in 5 or 6 months with this course and really write your sketches with this technique. And when you finish Advanced Surfaces course, you can get to know different systems in creating volume, and slowly you can continue onwards. So I'll try to do this. Added some hatching and shadows, so we'll get a different outcome. Usually I put my left arm on the left side of the paper, is because to be able to rotate the paper with my left arm. So sometimes rotating my page is something important to me. Adding hatches on the left side, and after that, let's move to the shadows in between them. Because this darkening between them will show the depth of it. Look, when you're showing seams, it starts getting depth to it. So we are finishing highlights here, and I can see a good depth and dimension in my work. Let's move to the bottom ones. Added some stones next to it. It's really interesting. It's a formed wall and it's blending into a natural surface, and it leads to our grassy area. So these areas are covering each other bit by bit. Look, I'm adding the hatching on the left side. So we consider the right side as the light and left side as the shadows. Do it very simple. Add some grass and details like this. And as you can see, it's creating a form like this. And later on I will teach you how to do wiggly lines in drawing some plants. You can use some wiggly lines in drawing some plants. We will have to practice later on, but now you can try to use these lines to be able to make a bush here. Let's move to our next texture here. And I'll try to draw this in another pattern. As you can see, they're completely random, big and small, up and down. So I'm using the same pattern that I used before. We can complete them with that. It blends into the bushes. Don't draw the bottom part, so it fades into our bushes there. And remember, drawing is the first part. It's really important if you can do it very good, of course. But the main part is designing. But it's like if someone doesn't have a driver license and he's driving. So when you don't know basic stuff and rules like lining, and you don't know the tools in your major, you cannot design very well. Which means we cannot design without our tools. So I did this here, and some mixture, let's make this into a building. Like this. So I'm designing a facade. I did this. Let's close it from this part. I can have another movement to the left. Like this, it comes down and connects to here. Draw the bottom line, and I'll start adding some windows here and creating some space. So we are giving this thing a shape. So I can do this very easily. And next to this part, I will draw this, like this. And then I want to make it with some wood, add some wood texture to it. So I will do my dividings with 2 lines and add it with texture on it. Very fast and very low pressure. You can use even 0.1 rapid for this. I'm not recommending that, but first you need to be able to grip your pen very good. But when you saw that you can't have enough control on it, it's better to use rapids with lower millimeter. So I did the other part and it got some wood texture to it. Let's draw some windows on the other side. Like this. And that with some simple hatching, well, I can then add another windows here in the shape of a cube. I can do the same things on the other side also. Add a middle like that. We can differentiate the back side with a hatching. Our hatching can be a texture itself, and it can be a pattern. Which means we can use them as a material. I'm doing this. And on the other side, let's add another chimney. And I will make some bushes and trees with wiggly lines or wrinkled lines. And as you can see with our hatching, it's getting depth and a good texture. So let's bring this part down here. Added some more stones here also. We can even do the continuation with some more stones. So we're showing that this space is a mountainous area. And added some plants in between, so it's getting a better shape to it. So I'm drawing my plans with wrinkled lines. Don't forget the shadows. They will make our work alive. For windows, I will add some 45-degree angle and create the material for our windows. We're using fast hatching. Try to make corners darker, make edges darker. It's really important to do that. I can edit the reflection of nature on our glass. What I mean by that is, if I have a tree in front, I can edit it with a black stain dot in our window. This will help us to render better, and I can show what is a reflection of this window and glass. Let's do the left side also. So let's move to this part. Added a chimney here, bring it up. At the same angle, I will cover the top surface, add another surface on top of it, and make it like this. So we have it like this. So what I will do now, let's add some trees behind our building. We're using our wrinkly lines. In next sessions, we will practice plants and trees, and we'll make sure together that you will have no problem with drawing them and designing your trees. So if you couldn't do them very perfectly, it doesn't matter. Later on, we will spend some time on it. So look, when your landscape in your area is filled with greenery and stones and details, it's forming really good. I'm not going to add a lot of details, but this could be a completed work, and you can just represent this one. I'm just adding small details here. And in the next parts, I will teach you guys how to do plants. But here, I'm just adding some mood to our sketch. With just simple movements, how we can evolve our work. And as much as we go further, I will teach you guys more details. These wrinkled lines can form our background. And close it. Let's add some simple stains for facade. And my approach in this lesson is for you guys to see how we can use materials and textures in designing and representing my building. So let's add some simple stains in my sky to color the sky a bit and see how it can change the end result. And use a simple green in my background. I'm not going to use it very much, just do some stains. So I will just add some stains here in order to show that it's greenery here. Let's choose a color for our sky. It can even be a dark color or a different color. Let's do the color that you don't usually color sky like that. But this time I'm just gonna use a different color for our sky. But I'm gonna teach you guys plants and sky and other textures in later lessons. And we will learn how we can get a very good result and just a couple of things. As you can see, without doing anything special rendering, my end result is really good with just a couple of simple dots in our work. So we'll learn how to draw stones and do topography and wood texture, and we understood when we put them together our end result will be a little different. We can do a top-notch sketch.